Most people color fruit exactly how they see it. Green for a pear, red for an apple, or yellow for a banana. But what if you didn't? What if you colored a pear starting with blue or a banana starting with purple? I'm going to show you how using color theory can elevate your coloring skills and take an ordinary drawing and turn it into something vibrant, realistic, and full of life. Before coloring anything, I map out where the light and dark areas will be. This keeps the pear looking 3D instead of flat, and it makes coloring easier. The amount of shadow and light you draw can affect how the drawing looks, so it's good to understand where the colors will go. I'm having the light come from the right side, so the shadows in the darker side will be on the left. Okay, now I'm going to start with the traditional colored pear. I begin by coloring the middle section with the green base that I want the pear to be. When I start coloring, I don't use that much pressure because once you press down super hard, it makes it so much more difficult to blend colors. So, use a light hand when you start and casually add more pressure on the more layers. Then, I go in with my darker color in the shadow section. Here, it's a dark green, and it'll hug the side of the shape. The shadow also extends along the bottom of the pear. I layered dark green along the outside line to create this contrast, but it gets lighter as it meets the middle of the pear. It's a little bit of where the gradient starts happening. And it also goes at the top where the pear comes in and where the stem meets it. You can see that after I get the base shadow color down, I end up going back in with even more pressure and to make it darker. This will increase the contrast, add more depth, and also as the shape is farther away from the light, it gets a lot darker. So that's why I really emphasize the object's darkness along its edge. For the light section, the right side, I use my light green to color, but I did save a sliver by the edge for white space to act as the light reflection. You can notice that when direct light is applied to objects, lots of times there are explicitly white areas. So it's not unrealistic and it's not weird to just leave a section pure white or a little bit off-white. But again, personal preference, you don't actually have to, but I like to do this. I use the base green to blend the light and the dark sides into each other. Again, as I said, it's as if it were a gradient. You can see that the shadowed section is still the dark green color, and the light section is again still the light green color. But as the sections meet in the middle, I colored lighter so it can blend. You can still see a distinction between the dark and the light compared to the middle, but it does flow a lot better. For the stem, I use different shades of brown, light and dark ones, to shade them one side lighter and one side darker, just so it blends together. But to be honest, looking back at this, I think I definitely should have done it the other way around, where the light comes from the right, no duh, but oh well, it still works. So here's the finished regular pear. It's smooth and it's clean, but it kind of looks flat. So let's see what happens if we bring in color theory. Now for the fun part, and honestly, this is my favorite part. It's using color theory to make greater depth and dimension, and it sort of reflects reality a little bit more, at least in the ways that I find. So I want my pear to appear cool rather than warm. Again, there's warm and cool colors. So I end up starting with blue as the shadow. Yes, blue. Okay, blue gives a cooler, deeper look, and it will make the green pop. So there's also the whole concept of complementary colors, and usually complementary colors can also help build depth in colors and create dimension, again, working within this color theory, but color theory is an all-encompassing term. There's so many different applications of it. So right now, I'm gonna just show you what it looks like with the blue as the main shadow. Again, I colored darker by the edge of the pear and lighter in the middle, again, to really help with the blending. And for the light section, I ended up swapping light green for yellow. Then again, I saved a little white sliver by the edge to be the light's direct reflection. You can already tell though, looking side by side, that this pear feels more alive. It feels more interesting. Now, as I said, there are complementary colors. So on the color wheel, these will sit opposite to each other. Green's complementary color is not blue, but it's red. So I'm using that also in the shadow area to try to get a little bit depth, but again, I'm leaning a lot on that blue to make that cool, deep shadow. So I went in with a lighter blue as sort of a segue between the dark green and the dark blue shadow to the middle type of green. I also went in and added blue as the shadow area for the stem. Yes, I end up making blue and orange and green sometimes, and I mix that to make brown. Okay, now brace yourself. This is when the magic happens. The blending. So, I layer the green all over the blue and all over the red, and I end up pressing down fairly hard because that's when I'm finally going to get the pigment blending together. I take the darker green and I color again all over this dark area, and I apply more pressure. The shadows don't just end up looking darker, they look dimensional. To blend out the yellow, I take my lightest green and I layer that over where the yellow ends and the green begins. I use light pressure to start blending it and casually start applying more. After this, I use my base green color and I start coloring over all of it. This is really when the blending appears well and the transition's happening and the pear starts taking shape. I add some green to the stem before I finish it with brown. I use a lighter brown to color over them and the dark brown for the shadow, and honestly, that's really all I do for it. Now onto the shadows. When you add a shadow to an object, it's very dependent on its shape and the lighting. But usually, if the light is coming from the right, I make the shadow begin about halfway through the bottom of the object, and I extend it in a line to the left. It will still hug the object's bottom left side and sort of extend beyond it. The shadow will be darker where it touches the object and lighter as it extends out, so I end up coloring lightly the farther away I get. For the shadow, it would have been more realistic to go and use a dark blue or a dark purple color, but I wanted to use red and orange because it's a drawing, I can use whatever I want. So that's what I did. Where the shadow is the darkest, it's best to use a variety of colors here. I added brown and dark red because you don't want it to appear flat and you want it to appear closer to black. For the regular pear, I ended up making the shadow using pencil a majority of the time just because it's usually done with black, but I didn't want to just use black, so I did pencil. But again, this is very up to everyone's personal opinions. I ended up using black as it was closer to the object and made it a little bit darker. But then for the color theory pear, I went in with some of the blue and made it almost like 10 billion times darker just with that one color addition. And voila, side by side, you can see the clear differences. I'm not saying that either one is better than the other, color theory, or that one is worse, the regular, just kidding. But they both visually appear different. Again, the amount of time that you spend on this and whether you want to or not is a big dependent. Both of them can look amazing. I just prefer the second pear, the color theory one. One, because it's a lot more fun to color and I love watching the colors transform. But two, the pear feels more alive and vibrant and it has so much contrast and it feels so fun. Whereas the first pear doesn't give me that same energy. It feels less interesting. Even though I ended up using red and blue and yellow in the pear, it looks cohesive. It does not look like I threw the rainbow inside of it and it just like threw it up. The color theory technique is not just for fruits though. Let me make that clear. It works for everything. Although I end up mostly drawing food, so that's really the only thing you'll see, unless I decide to venture out. If you want me to try this though with another fruit or show you something else, please let me know in the comments and I am more than happy to. And if you like this video, subscribe for more color theory art tips, or just other art tips in general. Thanks for watching!